Everyone says if you love someone, you should fight for them. But what if fighting is exactly what destroys love? When Keanu Reeves walked away in silence, the world called it weakness. But what if that silence was the strongest decision he ever made? Stay with me, because this story will completely change how you see love, loss, and self-respect. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's dive into what really happened. Everyone expected him to fight. Everyone expected him to speak up, explain himself, defend his feelings, and prove that love mattered to him. But Keanu Reeves did something no one was ready for. He chose silence. In a world where love is usually loud, emotional, and played out in front of cameras, his quiet response felt shocking. There were no interviews filled with hidden anger. No dramatic statements. No social media posts asking for sympathy. No attempts to convince anyone of his side of the story. Just distance, dignity, and a calm silence that made people uncomfortable. Because silence is confusing. Silence doesn't give answers. Silence forces people to think. Many misunderstood it. Some said he was weak. Others claimed he didn't care enough to fight. A few even believed silence meant emotional distance or indifference. But those who truly paid attention saw something different, something deeper. Keanu wasn't silent because he had nothing to say. He was silent because he understood the cost of speaking at the wrong time. He knew that words spoken from pain can turn love into conflict, and explanations given under pressure often create more damage than clarity. This wasn't avoidance. This was control. This wasn't coldness. This was respect. He understood that love doesn't always need defending in public. Some emotions are too real, too personal, to be turned into headlines or debates. By staying quiet, he protected not only himself, but the meaning of what they once shared. Keanu wasn't running away from love. He was refusing to destroy it just to feel understood. His silence carried maturity. It carried acceptance. It carried emotional strength that most people never develop, because most people confuse fighting with caring. Keanu understood that sometimes the most powerful statement is knowing when not to speak. And that's what made his silence so loud. Because in that quiet decision, he showed the world that real strength doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes, it simply steps back and lets truth reveal itself with time. Keanu Reeves has lived a life shaped by loss, patience, and quiet reflection. Through personal hardships and long moments of solitude, he learned a truth that many people only understand after years of emotional pain. Not every love story is meant to be saved by force. Most people grow up believing that real love must be proven through struggle. They think if you truly care, you should fight harder, speak louder, chase longer, and refuse to let go. Love, in this view, becomes something you defend at all costs, even if it slowly drains you. But Keanu saw what many fail to notice. He understood that love built on pressure does not heal. It slowly turns into exhaustion. When a relationship reaches a point where love demands constant explanations instead of peace, something has already shifted. When every conversation feels like a defense, and every silence feels like guilt, the connection is no longer safe. Keanu recognized that forcing emotions only creates distance, not closeness. He realized that holding on too tightly can crush the very thing you are trying to protect. Love cannot breathe when it feels trapped. Affection fades when it is surrounded by fear, expectations, and emotional weight. What once felt warm begins to feel heavy. So instead of turning love into a battlefield, Keanu chose dignity. He refused to argue just to feel important. He refused to beg just to stay connected. He refused to chase someone who needed space to understand their own heart. This choice was not weakness. It was awareness. He understood that acceptance is sometimes stronger than resistance. That stepping back can preserve respect where fighting would destroy it. By choosing calm over conflict, he protected his sense of self. He chose not to lose who he was while trying to hold on to someone else. This wasn't giving up on love. It was choosing not to turn love into pain. Keanu's decision reminds us that love does not always require a battle to be real. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let go gently, without anger, without blame, and without losing yourself in the process. And in that quiet acceptance, he showed that real love is not proven by how hard you fight, but by how wisely you choose peace. For Keanu Reeves, silence was never about avoidance. It was about wisdom. It was a conscious decision made with clarity, not fear. He understood something many people struggle to accept. Real love respects freedom. When someone feels unsure, emotionally tired, or distant, pushing them closer rarely brings them back. In fact, it often does the opposite. Keanu believed that love should feel safe, calm, and natural, not heavy or suffocating. The moment love begins to feel like pressure, something essential is already breaking. There are times when words lose their power. When explanations start to sound like excuses. When promises feel more like emotional weight than comfort. In those moments, continuing to speak does not heal, it harms. Keanu recognized that silence, when chosen wisely, can protect both hearts. By stepping back, he allowed space to do what arguments never can. Space for emotions to settle. Space for clarity to emerge. Space for truth to show itself without influence or force. He trusted that if love was genuine, it would find its way back naturally, without being chased or convinced. And if it didn't return, then holding on would only create regret. Keanu understood that forcing someone to stay doesn't create love, it creates obligation. And love that exists out of obligation slowly turns into resentment. He refused to be the reason love felt trapped. Instead, he chose to be the reason it felt respected. Letting go quietly was his way of saying, I care about you enough to give you freedom. It was a sign of emotional maturity, not emotional distance. He valued the person enough to step aside rather than control the outcome. This kind of wisdom is rare, because it requires patience and self-trust. It means accepting uncertainty without panic. It means choosing peace even when the heart wants answers. And it means believing that what is meant to stay will not need to be forced. Keanu's silence was not empty, it was full of meaning. It carried respect, understanding, and deep emotional intelligence. And in letting go without noise, he showed that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and allow life to unfold on its own. In today's world, society often celebrates loud love, the grand gestures, the public confessions, the dramatic sacrifices that make headlines and go viral. People are drawn to love that shouts, that demands attention, that is impossible to ignore. But Keanu Reeves shows us a completely different kind of strength, the kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that chooses dignity over drama. The strength to walk away without hatred, without anger, without turning love into a spectacle. It takes immense courage to remain calm when your heart feels heavy. To feel the weight of loss, disappointment, or unfulfilled desire, and still not lash out, complain, or demand explanations. It takes maturity to accept an ending without seeking reasons, without blaming yourself or the other person. And it takes deep self-respect to choose peace over emotional chaos, to value your own well-being while still caring for someone else. Keanu's silence was never coldness. It was compassion, for himself and for the person he cared about. He refused to let heartbreak turn into bitterness. He refused to rewrite shared memories with anger or resentment. Every quiet step back he took was a choice to honor what once was, rather than to punish what had changed. By choosing silence, Keanu demonstrated that true strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is steady. Sometimes it simply stands still, breathes, and lets life move forward naturally. Strength is in restraint. Strength is in choosing respect over revenge. Strength is in walking away with dignity while the world expects spectacle. This kind of quiet strength leaves a lasting impact. It teaches us that courage is not always measured by how loudly you fight or how visibly you struggle. Sometimes courage is measured by the grace with which you accept reality, the composure with which you protect your heart, and the wisdom with which you allow life to unfold without forcing it. Keanu Reeves' example shows us that the bravest act is not always the loudest. Sometimes, the bravest act is to remain silent, honor the past, and move forward with integrity, demonstrating a strength that is timeless, profound, and deeply human. The story of why Keanu Reeves chose silence instead of fighting for love carries a lesson far deeper than most realize. Love should never come at the cost of your self-respect. True love is not about begging someone to stay, proving your worth endlessly, or sacrificing your peace just to hold onto a relationship. Real love uplifts, it respects, and it allows space to grow. If someone genuinely wants to be with you, they won't need to be convinced. Their presence won't feel forced. Their commitment will be natural, consistent, and heartfelt. Love that requires constant battles, constant explanations, or endless persuasion is no longer free, it has become a burden. And when a relationship starts to feel heavy, emotionally exhausting, or unsafe, sometimes the bravest act is simply to step back. Leaving gracefully does not mean giving up. It does not mean you cared less. In fact, it often requires more courage than fighting endlessly. Walking away without anger, without resentment, and without attempting to manipulate outcomes demonstrates emotional strength and self-respect that is rare and inspiring. Silence, as Keanu showed, can itself be a form of love. Sometimes saying nothing is more powerful than any argument, gesture, or explanation. Letting go can be an act of care, a way of honoring both yourself and the other person. Walking away peacefully, without blame or bitterness, can be the bravest choice of all, a decision that preserves dignity, humanity, and emotional health. Keanu didn't lose love that day. He preserved his integrity, his sense of self, and his humanity. In doing so, he reminded the world that sometimes the most meaningful thing you can say is nothing at all. Words are powerful, but silence, when chosen wisely, can carry wisdom, respect, and strength that words often fail to convey. This story challenges how we think about love, conflict, and relationships. It teaches that the greatest victories in love are not always loud. They are quiet, subtle, and full of grace. By stepping back, respecting boundaries, and choosing peace, we honor ourselves and others. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: sometimes, the right thing to do for love is not to hold on, but to let go.